Rose here. Have you ever heard of cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort a person feels when something that they're learning goes against what they believe, what they were taught to believe unquestionably as truth. Cognitive dissonance is actually a psychological phenomenon that occurs when a person holds two contradictory beliefs or teachings at the same time. So as you watch my videos, you probably feel uncomfortable with the information and facts that I try to provide for you. Why? Because what I show you isn't what you have been taught as truth. As I go into more of the history of the Watchtower organization, I want to remind you of something. I think it's time to remind everyone what helped me to start to be able to do research outside of the Watchtower organization, even though I knew I wasn't supposed to. Let me explain what helped me be willing to look at things that at one time I would have never even considered looking at because they were considered apostate lies. A little bit about me. When I was first waking up, I don't really like that phrase, but that's what's happening because you're waking up to untruths that you were taught as absolute truths. And it's hard to do that. It was also hard for me to understand what cognitive dissonance and critical thinking is. See, I thought I understood what critical thinking is. I've always done research to see how I could apply the things that I was learning at the meetings to myself, to better understand what I was being taught at the meetings and assemblies. But I only ever used the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, the organization's publications for that information. When we really start to question something or actually use our critical thinking, cognitive dissonance definitely kicks in. And that was hard for me to comprehend. What is cognitive dissonance? What does it mean? And why should I care? This is the best way I can explain it when it comes to learning things that go against what we believe and perceive as absolute truth. Let's say that from the moment you were born, you were told that God lived in an object, and that's where he lived. Now, there were certain times that you heard that he lived elsewhere, but you knew exactly where he lived because you had been told that since birth. Everyone you know said that is exactly where he lived. Your mom, your dad, your grandma, grandpa, and all of your friends, in fact, everyone you associate with, says God lives in that exact object. Now, why would you even think about not believing them? Would you even consider that they are wrong? Probably not. But what if you come across some facts that you just can't deny, that prove God doesn't live in that particular object? What do you do with that information? Because you are absolutely sure you have been taught the right answer. You had been taught the truth about the matter. But the deeper you start to research, you find out maybe what you were taught, your understanding, was wrong and could easily be proven wrong. So now what do you do? We're taught from a very young age so-called Bible truths about Jehovah and the organization. Truths like the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society was chosen as God's true channel in 1919. Charles Russell, Judge Rutherford, Nathan Knorr, all the different governing body members up to today's current men were the faithful slave that we rely on to give us Bible truths. That discomfort, the confusion, the conflict that you feel is cognitive dissonance. Basically, your mind is at war with what you're learning because it goes against what you know as facts, as truth. What happens when you start to learn actual facts about not only the organization's history and how it has all been built on lies, but you also start to learn about a lot of corruption that has been covered up, things that you may have never heard about before. Now, there are two things that you can do. You can deny what you were learning because it makes you feel uncomfortable and because you were told not to look, or you can start to look even further. But when you do that, something happens to you. You start to go through a deconstruction process. That is the process of unlearning what you were taught as truths. When you start to really critically question your beliefs and start to recognize that the men who supposedly speak for God aren't actually what they claim they are. Remember, critical thinking is being able to take what you were learning, dissect it to see if it is true. That means if you find something negative out about the organization that is actually factual, you believe it. You find out that it's not just apostate lies, but actual truth. It's when you find something out, but you choose to ignore it because it goes against what you perceive as truth, that you really aren't using your critical thinking. When you take something that you learn and instead of immediately dismissing it, you find out the facts. And it's then and only then, once you have all of the facts, do you decide if it is true or not. Now that's critical thinking. See what I mean? But that's not so easy. So I want to go over some of the emotions I went through when I was deconstructing my core beliefs. I'm sorry to say that for many waking up, it's a very traumatic experience. It was for me. Maybe that was due to my age. The more I learned, the more the emotions started to come out. So I want to go through some of the major ones that I went through to try to address them individually. So if they happen to you, you understand what is happening. When I started to really deconstruct everything that I had been taught, and I started to learn new things about the organization, my mind went into overdrive. I started to write down random thoughts at random times. I would be doing my research, and I'd find something out, and I would just want to explode. I couldn't write what I was learning down fast enough. I wanted to remember everything, along with how it made me feel. Now, I wasn't told I had to do this, but I felt I had to. I had to get it out of me and down on paper to prove what I was learning to myself. And I wanted to share what I was learning, but I didn't dare with my friends or family for obvious reasons. Even though I have a bunch of different notebooks, things written out of chronological order, whatever, I'm really glad I did it. It helped me get my feelings and my thoughts out of my brain. It really gets filled up and noisy in there sometimes. It's also been very helpful to look back and reflect on where I was and my thought process at the time. Now, if writing isn't your thing, paint, play music, sing, go for walks, scream in your pillow if you need to, but get those thoughts out of your brain because it can get way too crowded up there otherwise. You need to give yourself time to heal. There's so much information to take in, you're going to be completely overwhelmed at times. So it's okay to take a step back. When you are deconstructing your beliefs, you're actually turning your world upside down. So heed my words. Take a break. I insist. It really is the best for you because your mind needs a break. You're filling it with more information than it has ever taken at one time. Your heart and your soul need healing. Your world has just been snatched from beneath you. It's okay to not be okay. take a few moments, days, maybe a week to just breathe. No reading, Googling, researching, watching, nothing of anything. Just take care of you. Please take that to heart, because I can't emphasize this enough. It's a huge thing that is happening right now. When you become awake, the different emotions can be overwhelming. You might feel shock at what you're learning, anger at what you've been taught, and maybe what you feel you've lost because of the beliefs that you were taught. Grief for the loss of both your core beliefs and possibly family and friends, all depending on the actions that you choose to take. Everyone awakens differently in different manners for different reasons. And it's a major process to deconstruct something so woven in your every fiber of being. You're going to use YouTube and Google on overdrive, and that's great. There's so much information that you will find, and there are so many resources for you to seek out. In fact, I'll put a few of them in the description for you. Now, before you start telling all of your friends and your family what you're learning, remember the saying: before you argue with someone, think to yourself, is that person even mentally mature enough to grasp the concept of different perspectives? Because if not, there's absolutely no point. Amber Veal. In other words, don't try to argue your newfound information with everyone. Trust me, it's not worth it. You have to remember your mindset before you woke up. I understand that you will want to show your family or friends reason and logic on what you have found and what you are learning and what you are seeing. I completely get that. But you need to be honest and ask yourself, would that have worked on you before you woke up and opened your eyes? Or would you have put a mental wall up and shut them down? I call it the witness's circular way of thinking. This is what the governing body says, and they are always right. Well, how do we know what they are saying is true? Because they said so. Don't you believe them? See what I mean about circular way of thinking? Instead, I found it helpful to write down my arguments and answer my pretend questions that I felt that they would throw at me, because I literally just had to get it out. But you know what? I always lost on paper because I knew what they would come back with. Non-reasoning, non-logical, circular nonsense. Sadly, that's all they know. So you need to ask yourself, is it really worth it? Or the loss that you might get because of it? The first emotion I remember was shock. What's shock? Shock is a sudden or violent disturbance of the mind, emotions, or sensibilities. When you start finding out the deception, the corruption, and the lies witnesses have been taught going on 150 years now, that's a major disturbance of your mind. Especially finding things out that you weren't supposed to because you were willing to look at anything the organization did not want you to. So here I want to say bravo for you for taking this step. Since there's so much information out there, it's not hard to find things out. There's plenty of channels with different perspectives and information, just like mine. I'm going to speak from my personal experience. My very first peek at anything was watching the Leah Remini documentaries on Scientology. I thought, that's okay. It's another religion. I can do that. And I thought, what a crazy religion. What could Leah possibly have on witnesses? Well, come to find out, lots. But my brain was fighting me because that cognitive dissonance kicked in strong. But then I started noticing things said at the meetings and at the conventions, and I finally read Crisis of Conscience, and that put me literally in overdrive shock. As you learn more, you're going to have a ton of emotions. Finding out that what you have been taught and told as absolute truth was either based on a lie, fabricated, or made up, you're going to be mad. I was. Whether you're born into the organization or you choose to come in later in life, you're going to have anger at the deception, anger at the loss of your childhood, anger that you did not get the much-needed worldly higher education. It goes on because there's a lot to be angry for. Anger is just part of the process. The key is to learn how to conquer that anger and not let it consume your life. Be angry, but don't stay that way. I can't speak for someone who came in later in life. I became one of Jehovah's Witnesses the moment I was born. As I started to really wake up, I found myself crying a lot. I was angry, yes, but why was I so upset? Well, for me, learning the history of the society and the ongoing doctrinal changes was like a punch to my gut, a slap to my face. Everything that I had always believed wasn't real. My core beliefs had just been shattered. My world was being turned upside down. That's a major loss. Top that with any family issues that come along with waking up or grieving what was, but isn't anymore. It's hard. Sometimes I found my mind on overdrive, filled with a million different things all at once. Your body reacts, and at times it was hard for me to get myself under control. We're going through a major life change in so many ways. I remember one time I literally had to stick my head in a bowl of ice water just to get myself under control. The anxiety attacks a person has is not a joke because it can literally overwhelm you at times. I found that my world had just been rocked, and it had been rocked hard. Everything that I had been taught was being turned upside down. I didn't know what I believed anymore. I couldn't understand why it hurt so much. I didn't understand when my family started to treat me the way they did. I started to feel very isolated. Maybe you've lost your family members. Maybe you've lost your entire social circle. Maybe you even lost your job. Depression is also a common result of deconstructing one's beliefs and coming out of a high-control religion. I also had this very deep sense of loss. For one, like I said, I had lost my entire core belief system. But if you're like me, even though I still see my family and friends, I also grieve what was. It's not the same being around them, and unless they too wake up, I don't think it will ever be the same again. We just don't think the same. Some have tried to share what they are learning with their family, and because of that, they have lost their family and friends, and that's a huge loss. So there's a lot to grieve while you're deconstructing. So allow yourself time to grieve if you need to. And now that you're awake, please remember nothing has changed except your thinking. It's going to be hard to navigate your newfound awareness and knowledge about the truth about the truth. Now, some choose to quietly fade. What does it mean to fade? Basically, you're trying your best to become invisible. Eventually, maybe even stop going to meetings altogether. Now, each fade is unique for everyone. You will find some similarities, but this is your journey. Maybe it starts by stepping down from a certain privilege you have been given. Maybe you stop going out in service. Maybe you stop answering at the meetings. It's completely up to you what you do. Now, there are going to be obstacles along the way, all depending on what you choose to do. So your journey is yours to take at your speed. Mine was set on old-timer turtle slow, if that helps anyone. But whatever you choose to do, please find support. If you're not able to get a therapist who can deal with religious trauma syndrome, because that really is a thing, there are support groups online. There might even be a community in your area. Going through the deconstruction process, well, I don't wish that on anybody. But if this helps you just a little bit, I'm glad. Now, if you feel comfortable either sharing a thought or something in the comments, please feel free to do so, because maybe you can help someone who would read them. Sometimes the littlest of things can take away our peace of mind, and it can become overwhelming. Overwhelmed to simply put a smile on when we feel like life is handing us a pile of. So I hope this list serves as a peacekeeper for you. Sometimes we have to learn by completely starting over. But please remember, you're not in this alone. There are so many of us out there, some sadly suffering in silence so that they don't lose their world. So I'm sending this video out, hoping it can help you find peace as well. I'm sending it with my love, too. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like. It helps this video go out to a larger audience, algorithms and all. As always, thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves out there. Don't let those men in New York win.